Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm really excited to be here. I've been using WordPress for over 15 years professionally, and it's a learning experience. It's a learn as you go experience, and there are always new tools out there to use that try to catch your attention. But I think sometimes finding the right tools for you can be a challenge, and everyone has their opinions on that subject on what the best tools are. But I think it's worth, exploring and trying out some of these builders and finding the one that really is the right fit for you and the project that you're working on. So in my professional life, I own Oaks Creative House, like Sarah said, and we are a small graphic design marketing agency. And we cover everything from branding and logo design to website development to ongoing digital marketing like newsletters and social media. So a little bit of everything we do here, but WordPress is my personal baby. I don't have any other designers right now who help me with WordPress. It's all me. So I love teaching it also so that I can eventually get some help at the end of the day too, right? That's always important.
Yeah. Sharing that registered for
some new people coming in. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so I've been using WordPress for a while, and I have taught Elementor to several people. So I think that this is going to be really fun. I would love for it to be interactive. Obviously, whenever we unmute ourselves and we get audio issues. So why don't we try to use the chat pretty proactively while we're here? So if there's anything that I'm showing you that you have a further question on, or that you'd like me to go back and look at, or a specific thing that you'd like me to show you, I would love for you to kind of pop that in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on it as we go.
I can monitor that for you and interrupt if anything comes up.
Perfect. That's awesome. So yeah, the chat's probably our best place for that. And I was kind of telling Sarah, I'm used to giving presentations where I have a whole prep work done, but today I thought we would kind of go with the flow, and I would love to just show you what you need to see. So if there's anything specific, just let me know. I'm happy to kind of pivot in that direction for a minute and let you get the most out of this that you can. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for one of the sites that I'm working on that is currently in production. This one hasn't been fully launched yet, but it is for a therapist here in Oklahoma City, and we are putting this site together for her. It's her first one, so not a redesign of a current site, but first venture into her own practice. So obviously she needed a website for that. And I'm really excited to kind of dive in. I have several sites pulled up that we can look at in different styles and things like that too. But I think that this one's a good place to start since it's currently being worked on and messed with anyways. Okay, so the thing that we do here at Oaks Creative House is we use Elementor on all of our sites because I've found that it's just my personal favorite. I like that it runs pretty slim. It doesn't take too long as compared to some of the others like Divi or WP Bakery. They take a really long time to load. They're really buggy. They're definitely not in my favorite. Elementor to me just made sense. I also feel like I've had clients all across the spectrum that will either have knowledge of working with their website or zero knowledge. Some have zero tech knowledge at all. They hate their iPhones, right? It's really ranging across the board. But the collective response has been that they can get into their website and they can figure out how to use Elementor without having to schedule something with me if it's a quick little fix. So to me, I love that because I love empowering business owners to use their sites as much as possible. I don't think it should be a foreign thing that they look at and they're totally scared to touch. I want to empower them to learn and use it if they want to. So that's what we do here. I thought one thing that I would kind of start with today is just opening up a page and going through what are the elements within Elementor and what are they used for. If I can get my Zoom bar out of the way, here we go. So obviously when you add a new page, it's going to open it up in the WordPress editor, but instead we're going to choose Edit with Elementor. Okay, so then you can see here, I have a lot of the customizer settings already set for this site, which I also thought was a good place to start. So I've went in and added some of the colors, the header, the footer, you know, some of the button styles and things that can happen within the theme customizer. So then you start building pages, right? Which is what Elementor is really meant for. And I think the easiest place to start is to put in a row. So one of the ways that most page builders work, but especially this one, is you have rows and then you have inner rows and you have columns within that. And then you're dropping these little elements where you want them to go. So if you click the plus sign here, you can choose. You want it to be, you know, 1 column, you want it to be 2 or 5 or 6 or whatever you want to do here. So I'm just going to make it easy for us right now and pop in a single column. Then if we look over here at our elements, I'm just going to go top to bottom and kind of explain what some of these are because I'm not sure who has which knowledge in the group here, but like I said, use that chat if you have a specific question. So intersections obviously are going to pop us in some more columns here to work on. Headings, I think that's pretty self-explanatory for most people who use an editor of any kind. You're going to get your heading that's set by your styles and your customizer there. You can also fully customize any of the elements within the headings after you pop it on the page. Regular text blocks, that one's pretty self-explanatory. I think images are fairly self-explanatory as well. One of my favorite things, and you'll probably see me do this often about Elementor, is the right-click feature. I think it makes a lot of sense for all of us who use kind of different software, whether you're on a Mac or a PC, we're kind of used to right-clicking, and then you get into web and you don't get to do that, or it's pulling up your browser menu when you right-click. So I love that it's very quick to just delete this when I don't want it with the right-click function. Videos, you can pull in a self-hosted video, Vimeo, YouTube, that's pretty standard for any sort of editor. Buttons are pretty standard, like you can see it pulled in the styles from the customizer there. Spacers and dividers. Dividers have a line or an element for the divider. A spacer has nothing, it's just blank space. Google Maps, and then they have, you know, all kinds of icons, a library of icons that you can pull from here. Can pretty much look up anything you want. Or if you're like me and you know how to design those SVG icons in something like Illustrator, you can put in some custom ones too. Okay, so then we get into what they're considering the pro features. I've had Elementor Pro pretty much since the first time I messed with it on a website. I thought it was worth the money, so I went ahead and paid for it. You can pull in current posts. You can filter them by category. So if you're working on more of a blog site or you have a blog section on your site, you can easily pull in post and style how that looks. Things like portfolio or gallery of images. They do have a form functionality. It may be because I've been using Gravity forms for so long that I tend to resort to going ahead and using Gravity forms for what I want and not their built-in form functionality. You can make things like login pages, slideshows. You could pop a menu, like a navigation menu, anywhere you wanted. So you can see my menu from my header here. I can put it anywhere else on the page or design other menus within the WordPress menu functionality too. Okay, animated headlines, which if you ever go out to my website, I thought these were really fun to play with whenever I first designed mine. I don't use them quite as much on client sites, but there is sometimes that there is this place where you need to just really make that text pretty poppy and have it really stand out in a big way. So animated headlines are fun for that. Price list, price tables. I use price tables a lot. Those are great for, especially if you're selling products, but you can, you know, go in and add any of the features, the price, the button to sign up and pay for it, those kind of things. And let's see what else is down here. Flip boxes, which I'm pro or con flip boxes. I kind of flip-flop back and forth. No pun intended. Media carousels, testimonials, reviews. So you can kind of start to see here that they've done a really great job of saying what do people typically need to put on a website, and we're going to go ahead and provide at least a base element for that, and then whoever's building it can customize to their wishes. Facebook embeds, Facebook pages. To be honest, there are a lot of these that I don't need to use for most of the sites that I'm working on. We like to keep things fairly simple, not too complicated. You also don't want some of that integration with Facebook to break and it be a large portion of your site. So we try to keep those pretty much to a minimum. But PayPal buttons, there's all kinds of stuff that you can do. So image boxes are going to give you an image, and then there would be some sort of text below it, or you can change it to beside it, to the right, to the left, however you want to configure that. Counters, progress bars. I actually do use icon lists a lot, because there are, I've noticed a lot of content is well written in bullet form. And this is a really fun way not to just have boring bullets on your text, but you can actually go in and pick an icon to use that makes sense for that text. I mean, there's, you know, little clipboards and clouds. You can pick whatever fits your content. So you can see we're only about, what, halfway through the elements. And a lot of these are out of the box. I think the pro features are really great, but even if you're just using a site for the first time with Elementor, the basic features are really fantastic too. I'm just looking at the comments here, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, toggles and accordions, obviously those things are great for like FAQ lists. So you can put in list of information, a different testimonial, not in a carousel, that's there for you. Short codes, obviously HTML blocks, this is pretty standard in most editors now, but if there is a place where you need to pop in a piece of custom HTML to go on your site, you can do that very, very easily. And as you can see, it can just go on and on and on. So what I thought I would do here is, I'm gonna go ahead and delete this. What I thought I would do is pull up some content from this exact site and build through that content step by step. So I'm a big believer that content in web design should come first, and that it shouldn't be all convoluted with the visuals. And I think that this is really important, especially if you're working with clients, because it's really hard for our minds to separate out the information and the pretty part at the same time. So what I like to do, and this is just my internal process, but I like to show my clients their written content first, have them approve it, and then pull it into the design and the layout. So what that looks like for me is we use Google Slides. We put this into a content wireframe. So for the homepage here, you know, what we're starting with is some big splashy image, a title. You can get an idea of what that might look like here. The next section, so I go ahead and put this into sections in Google Slides for them so that they can get an idea of what it's going to feel like on their website without getting into the specifics. I don't like that picture of myself, that color's not quite right. You know, I don't want them to get into the visuals at this stage. I want them to stay in the mindset of reviewing content. So you can see here, maybe we thought a 2-column layout might be good for that type of content. Then we're going to jump down. We have call to action buttons throughout, testimonials, which she actually said she didn't have. So that one can be removed. I like to put a 3-step process in content. So this is kind of how maybe we would lay that out with icons or pictures. And then the last section there is a call to action for a consultation before we get into the footer. So this is kind of a typical landing page / homepage type of content. So what I thought we would do is just kind of walk through how I would build this out with Elementor. So obviously here I'm looking at a 1-column section. So I'm going to put in a 1-column section here, right? Pretty simple. Then I have a heading that's navigating your journey to thrive. And I'm not going to build this out exactly how you saw it on the homepage before. We're going to play around a little bit here. So what I might do is just go ahead and put in that headline. And then we have a subheading here or a piece of text. So what I like to do is just grab the elements as they are, whatever the default is, and go ahead and put them into the section while I'm working on it, and then go back and refine and tweak. So then we'd have a call to action button here. So text is where the text would go, right? Okay, so obviously if that was the top of your website that you're designing, that was pretty boring, right? So what we want to do is pop in a background image of some sort to that section. So the way that Elementor works is it basically has these three main tabs: layout, style, and advanced. For every element that you click, you're going to find those same three tabs. So here we're talking about layout in terms of, is this boxed content or full width? You can set the gap between the columns, the height of the section. So maybe we want this to be full screen. Maybe we want this to be like a specific height so you can still get some information above the fold there. Where the columns should go, vertical alignment of the text. So if you wanted it to, pop down somewhere else, then you can also do that within the column settings, and sometimes that works a little bit better. If it should be stretched, all of those kind of things. On my example here, for most of my sites, I do add another plugin called Essential Add-ons. And I've just found that it gives me a few of the things that I like to do on websites. I don't think it's necessary if you're building a website with Elementor. Everything out of the box will give you plenty to work with. But as a professional web designer, sometimes there are some things that I just really want to put on my client sites at the end of the day. So if you see any of these with EA on it, that is actually a separate plugin. Then under the style tab here, you can say, I want to give this background, maybe it's going to be just a color. Maybe we're going to change that to green, which obviously doesn't make sense because our button is green, right? Or you could click and pop an image in there. So this is the image I used on her homepage, which I thought was really fitting. Now, obviously, when you pop an image in a background anywhere, you're going to get something that maybe doesn't look quite right. So you can change the positioning of that image. You can decide if it's scroll or fixed, right? So you get a parallax effect there. How does it repeat? What's the size? Those kind of things. One of the things I really love is the custom position, because I can really decide, where do I want this woman in this picture to show up? So we can move her to exactly where we want, right? We can put the elements from the image where we want it in the picture. Okay, so I mean, that's not a bad opening section of a website. Obviously, when I did it for her, I did a few other things, added some more style to it, put in an arrow. But if we're sticking with really simple, what can Elementor do out of the box? That took a few seconds to do. Not super hard. So, do we have any questions about that portion before I go on to the next? Okay, if you come up with anything, just put it in the chat for me. So then I'll go back to my slides document here, and we have another section that obviously is going to look very different, because we don't want sections to look the same, one on top of the other. That would be a very boring website. So this one's going to be a 2 column. So there again, I come down to my plus sign here and I pop in 2 columns. And it looks like on the left side, I have another heading. So we can put heading here. And then we have another piece of text here. So the regular text editor is what I would use there, and put in that piece of text. Sometimes when you copy from Google Slides, it likes to add in another return at the end of paragraphs, so I have to watch for that a little bit, but no big deal. And then we have another call to action button for them. Then on this other side, what I kind of thought would work is an image. That would also be a really great place for a video. If she had a video talking about her mental health practice, that would be a great place for a video there. So we'll just put in an image here. Now, obviously, not too bad out of the box, but there are some things that I would do differently. So we could go to the section settings and go through those layout settings. Here in particular, what I would do is go over to this left-hand column and align this to the center. So we have some better spacing that goes all the way around. Now, if you wanted this image to go edge to edge, we didn't want it to be floating there, then we can change this whole section to full width. And then by default, it puts in a little bit of margin and padding. So if you take that out, then you can get it edge to edge. And then, you know, here we may not want that text to go all the way to the edge, so you can kind of fix that up a little bit too. So you can see there are several things that you can do there. Now, in talking about that right-click functionality, this is where when you start to kind of build out some of your pages in Elementor, I think it goes really, really fast. Because let's say I wanted a section just like this below it, but I wanted the image on the other side. I can do that in a matter of minutes. So I can right-click and say duplicate. And then I can just pick up this column and drag it to the other side. Obviously there I'd want to change this to where I had more space on now the right than the left. But then you can have these kind of flip-flop mirrored sections back to back within a few seconds. So I like that functionality a lot. So now let's think about, what does this section look like? And obviously whenever we do this in Google Slides to show content, we're just popping in a few different layouts to give variety. And you can always change your mind. But for the sake of this, let's go ahead and just use a one column section, but I think we need some color at this point in the site. So I'm going to go ahead and give it this kind of terracotta color that we have set for her brand, and then put in this content. So there again, you have heading. But this heading now you can't see, right? Because we're the same color on the same color. So if you go over here to the style, then you can easily just set that to white. And this section, maybe we want to center that. And then we can do the same thing here with our text. So I think I would rather have that centered. And I have noticed with Elementor, sometimes the alignment is in the style and sometimes it's in the content tab. I've been using it for long enough that I just know where it's at for different elements, but if you lose it, it is there. Okay, and then we want to put in a call to action for their consultation. Which obviously if you were doing this for a real website, you would put in a URL so that button actually functions and goes somewhere. But there again, I don't love the style of this button, right? It doesn't work on that color background. So this may be a place where we want to change the background color of the button to white, and we want to change the text color to that same terracotta color. As you can see, we can also easily change the hover, what's going to happen on hover. So that's where...
We have a couple questions that popped in.
Okay, go for it.
Do you design in another software like Figma or Adobe XD before developing in Elementor?
That's a great question. So I don't typically, because as you can see, I can get through an Elementor site really quickly. And if I'm designing it in something else first, then sometimes I feel like I'm showing a client something that may not be as accessible for their site. And as I mentioned in the first place, or in the beginning, my process is to enable my small business clients to actually use their websites. So I don't want to be putting in a ton of customizations. That's not my workflow. I want them to be able to pick up anything on their site and say, I want that same section on a different page. They can copy paste it to that other page because I used all of the built-in elements with Elementor. So I have done that in my corporate career. I do that for a couple different agencies now who that is their workflow. And typically I'll use Sketch for something like that. But I've heard Figma and Adobe XD and several of those other programs are really comparable and really great as well. I don't think there's a standout. Sketch is just the one that I know the best. So that's what I typically use. So I have done that, but I kind of found for my own clients, it's usually not worth the extra time, which then translates to me charging them extra money. And since they're small business clients or startups, a lot of the times they don't have that to pay. So not in my personal workflow.
And then Tim had a question. He's seeing a little screen icon by the margins and padding and some other settings. Does that mean you're just adjusting for the desktop width?
Yes, exactly. That's a great question. And I was gonna, I may loop back to that at the end of the page too. But one of the things that I like to do, I know a lot of designers that will design mobile first. My brain doesn't function that way. So I usually design desktop first so that I can see what I really want it to look like on the desktop. And then what I do is, as a last step process for the page, I go through and view it in tablet and view it in mobile. And I'll show you in a minute what those settings will look like. So for those of you who are wondering, what Tim was talking about is this little icon here. So it shows I'm setting those settings for desktop only right now. And then when I change it, I can set those settings for tablet or mobile.
Okay, that was it.
Perfect. Okay, so there, maybe we want a little bit more space here. I can duplicate that. We can pop in a little bit more space to make that section look a little better. And then I think this one's a good one to demo out, since we have kind of a 3-column, a little bit of a different content here. So let's go ahead and pop this section in. The way I did it on her homepage was with images. I have an image that correlates with each of those pieces of content. You could easily do the same thing with icons. So if you put icon here, then you can choose, maybe we're happy that we're finally getting to see a therapist. So we're putting in an icon there that fits. This is also where, if I do icons, I tend to like to do custom icons for people, but I'm also a professional graphic designer, so that makes sense for me. So here, I may not want the same heading that I did before, because obviously this is kind of a different subsection. So we're gonna say step 1, we're gonna meet. But I don't want that to look the same, right? So we can change the size here so that it is a bit smaller. Maybe I want the color of this to be green instead of terracotta, so that the design comes out with the hierarchy that you need, right? Because that's what graphic design really is all about, is saying which is the thing that's most important, which is the thing that's least important. So you can say here, I can set my section height so I get that good space between, and maybe I really like this column. Now I know I have to do 2 more. So a couple different ways you could do that is you could hit duplicate and then go in and just delete one of these columns. So then now you have 3. The other thing that you could do is the copy paste function, which I really love with Elementor, and I use it a lot. So you could just hit copy here, paste. You'd obviously have to do that for all 3 of these elements in here. But that's another easy way to get some content on the page. So I won't worry about putting in the right content here, since this is just a demo, but one thing I might do is change this column gap. So for the column gap, we might go wider so that we have a little bit more space between those elements. Now, actually one of my favorite features of Elementor is the copy and paste styles. So say on this icon, I said, that's just too much green. It's too much green and too much green. So I'm going to change that to this terracotta color instead. But now, since I probably have already picked other icons, right, for these 3, I don't want to go back and start over with all of my icons to get them to that terracotta color. And then obviously I have a global style saved, right? I have that terracotta color saved in there so that I can click it easily. But if you're working with a new color that's not part of your brand, then that may be kind of hard to then grab the hex color, put it in the right place. So what I like to do in this situation is copy, and then you can say paste style. And that's all from the right-click menu. So you can see easily, you can just go through and paste the style that you need. So I thought I would kind of show a few other things. Obviously, Sarah can interrupt me if you guys have questions in the chat. But the other things I wanted to kind of show you is what Tim was talking about. So you can, in the responsive mode here, it will switch you between desktop, tablet, and mobile. So if we start with tablet, obviously you can see some things are wrong, right? Which is to be expected. But I like to start top section all the way down to the bottom section and adjust things. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if it does not have that little device icon by it, this one, like by position or repeat, then you're adjusting it for the whole thing, for all devices. Now, if it has that little icon by it, you're just adjusting it for this device that you're viewing right now. So one of the things, obviously, is now I've lost my woman in my picture altogether. So we need to go back and change the positioning on the image so that she comes back into the screen. So that's one thing I might do tablet specific. Here, my padding that I did, or my margin that I put in on desktop obviously doesn't work for tablet. It tries to carry it through, but we don't want that anymore. So we're going to change that a little bit. That one's not too bad. That one's not too bad. The thing that I'd probably do is go back and add in some space so that it's all spaced out really nicely. But there again, you can look at it on mobile and change some things up here. So if we go to style, then again, that image position is obviously in the wrong spot. I lost her. There we go. We'll want to change her up just a little bit. And this is also when, you may need a different image for mobile versus desktop, and some things like that might come into play. But even things like maybe this section here, since now we've stacked columns on top of each other for mobile, this may be where I want to center this text instead of having it left aligned. Even this button here, I can go in and center the alignment on the button, and you can see I'm doing that only for mobile. You can also click into the section, and in the advanced tab under responsive, you can reverse the columns. So say I wanted that picture first. Remember, I had text over here, picture over here, but say I wanted the opposite effect on mobile, then I can just hit reverse and it will reverse those columns for me. Yeah. So obviously pop some questions in the comments if you want me to show you something specific, but one of the things that I thought I might go ahead and go over is some of the extra tools that I use often.
We have one more
perfect.
question.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for a beginner WordPress freelancer?
That is a great question. I would say content first. I think that that's really important. I work with a lot of young designers that and developers, but I work with a lot of young designers, particularly that they're trying to do all of it all at the same time. And that's really hard. So I think working with a great content writer, if that's not you, one of the biggest struggles that I hear from web designers is it either took a long time to get the copy, the text from my client, or when I got it, it was all really bad and it was nothing that I could design with. So there are amazing website content writers out there. Linda is right here in the in the presentation. So she's one of the ones that I use often. And they can help navigate that content worry for you so that whenever you get to the design portion, you're doing what I'm doing now, which is bringing that content to life instead of really navigating that process with them. So that can make it a lot easier. The other thing is invest in good tools. Try several out, download the free versions, try them out. But once you find something that you like don't be afraid to pay for the pro version of something if you need it, because it is going to make your life easier in the long run. And then what I'm going to show you next, which is some of the extra tools that I add into Elementor. I think those could be really helpful too, to make sure that you're kind of starting off on a good foot.
That was it. Perfect.
Okay, so let's talk about what that is. So this second button here is templates. And I've been a designer for over 15 years professionally. So there are times when you look at a project and you're thinking, I maybe need some inspiration. One, I maybe need some a quicker way to do this so that I'm not having to reinvent the wheel. And personally, for me, I flip-flop between a lot of builders. Elementor is my personal favorite, but I work for several agencies that use different builders. And this is one of my ways to, I saw that smile, Tim. This is one of my ways to put something in that's kind of what I'm looking for and see how they did it also. This is a great way to go in and say, how did they get that section to look that way? What if I did want a picture that went edge to edge, but I didn't remember to take out that default padding and margin that was in the picture, right? So if that was the case, I could scroll through here, which it's going to start with the boring 404s, but we'll scroll through and see if we find something we like. So say we were looking for a section, let's see. Oh, even this is kind of fun. How did they do this with the pictures that weren't exactly lined up, right? Maybe I want to do something like this on this site. So you can hit insert and it's going to put it on the page for you. And what I do here is I'll either use this and style it to match the site that I'm working on, right? So this isn't the right color. Maybe it's not the right font. I can go back in and change this to default. I can put it in the right terracotta color for my client. Maybe I don't need this piece, so we're going to take it out. But I could do that, or I can click on these elements and go, okay, what is this popover effect? That's really cool. Maybe I want to use that. And you can scroll through these settings and see how they have the settings done, which would likely be in motion effects. So they have a motion effect in there. And I don't know why it's not loading right now, but typically it'll show you what those settings are. So that's another great way to do it. Or say I wanted this same effect on my picture that I have up here, or on this icon. I can copy and I can paste style. I have to have the same type of element in though. So say it was an image, not a background image like that original one was. But if I wanted that same effect, I can click paste style. And now you see I wouldn't use that there, but I have this popover effect over here on this image. So that's a great way, I think, to learn any of the builders that you're working in, and especially with Elementor, is you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. They've put in some of these blocks and templates for you to use, and it doesn't mean that your site that you're designing has to look like a template, right? You can still use some creativity and make the site flow for the style you're working on, while still cutting a few corners in a way and using some of these elements that they have pre-set out for you. So that typically will save me a lot of time. And sometimes there's, just a section that looks almost exactly like what I'm trying to build, but I can use their section that they already have and get way closer in a faster amount of time and not end up in this spiral of, I don't know what I'm doing and where do you find that setting? And this is super confusing. So say there was a roll of client logos. Well, there you go. There's already a carousel of client logos or a grid of client logos right there for you. Now you just have to go in and change it to match what you're doing. So that's one of my favorite ways to kind of learn a tool is I personally don't go watch a ton of tutorials. They can be very helpful, but I like to pop in something that's already there and see how they did it. The other that I like to use there is if you've heard of Envato Elements, it's a stock photo site. They do photos, graphics, templates, all kinds of stuff, fonts, and it's my preferred, it's what we use here, but they have some beautiful Elementor templates, and they also have templates for, I think, Beaver Builder and several other of the main builders. So what I did on this site, you can actually already see, is I put in this template kit because I felt like it matched the style of what I was trying to design for my client. So there are a few pieces that I used from here. Like the header, I liked how they had that text done. So I got to the end result a lot faster. So you can, you know, if you're designing a pop-up, there's a pop-up template that flows with the rest of this that you can customize and tweak. And they have free kits, but they also have paid premium stuff too. So it makes it a little bit faster when you're learning. Okay, any other questions you guys have for me? I'm happy to roll through some of the other elements, but if there are any specific questions, I'm happy to answer those too.
Nothing's coming through.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I think what I'll do is click on one of these elements and roll through the specific settings for it, something that you're going to use often. So this is heading. Obviously, we're going to have the text that we want our heading to say, the URL that we want it to go through. Your link options here will allow you to say that it's going to open in a new window. The size of the heading, which you can set those default settings in your customizer. What tag we want to give it, what alignment it's going to have for desktop. Those are easy to change. And then under the style here, we have text color, which I had mentioned earlier that I had colors already saved here in this little global button. There's some default ones that come with Elementor, but I always pop mine at the bottom here that I'm using. So say for this heading, I wanted it to be a totally different color. Maybe I wanted it to be kind of a light blue, for whatever reason. Okay, then it's as easy as clicking this little plus sign and giving this color a name. And then you hit create and now it's in your global menu. So a lot of the pieces in Elementor I feel like are very intuitive like that, where you can kind of hover over, it's creating a new global color. It'll kind of tell you what to do. The type, I love that you can set a different font for everything. Now, I only recommend using 2 to 3 fonts for a site. I usually don't use more than 2 personally, but say we needed a script here or a totally different type of font to make this really stand out differently, this section. Then you can pull in a different font just for that one section, just for that one heading, without changing the styles of your entire site. So maybe we wanted to use this somewhere on the site. There again, it's as easy as saying copy and paste styles if you wanted to use it somewhere else. And then we can go back and center that. I'm not a fan of text shadows. The only time I really use them are if I'm putting text over an image, and you can blur it out a lot just to get a little bit of separation from the image, but something like this on a white background I think looks dated, so I don't use them often. Then here in the advanced, you have your margin, your padding, your z-index, which is which thing is on front, which thing is in front, and which thing is on back whenever you're stacking elements. You can, obviously, if you write CSS, you can give everything a class and an ID and then come back down here and pop in custom CSS for that element only if you want to. Under motion effects, you have a couple different things. Scrolling effect would be obviously what happens when it scrolls, when you scroll. So I'm scrolling and the text is moving up. That would be a scroll effect. You can do vertical, horizontal, if it blurs, if it gets larger, all kinds of stuff. Mouse effects for when you hover over. Then it will do different things for you there. Do we want it to stay sticky? And then entrance animations, which I do like to use from time to time. So maybe we want this to zoom in when they get to this section on the page so that it really stands out. Obviously, all of those things are options. You can give it its own background. If we wanted it to have a background color or an image, you can give it a border or a mask. Maybe we were masking it into a circle or a hexagon, which would probably work better for image than text. Positioning, you can say if it's inline or full width. And then you can actually go in and put anything on any exact position that you want. I lost it when I did that. Oh, here we go. You can move things exactly where you want them on the screen, but I don't recommend it. You should use web best practices for the most part, and do that within the spacing rules and the section height and things like that. Responsive, you can actually just hide specific elements. You could hide a whole section if you wanted to for either mobile or tablet. And sometimes this becomes really necessary whenever you have a section that just doesn't respond well and you need to kind of redesign it for one of those other devices. What I tend to do is then take it, hide it on mobile if I'm redesigning a specific section for mobile, and then take that section and hide it on desktop so I'm not seeing it there. And then you can put in your attributes for SEO. Okay, so that's a heading. Any specific elements that you guys want me to review in more depth?
We had one question come in. When working with clients, do you use themes or just create a custom design for them?
Yeah, so I do a little bit of both. I think even when I do pull in a template, that it ends up being a very custom design because I'm a designer. So like I said, I use those template pages to more pull the elements that I like so that I don't have to start from scratch. But I will say that if you're just getting started and that's a place that you need to start, as long as your client knows that it's not a full custom design and they may run across a website that looks very similar to it, I think that's fine. I think it's all about honesty with your client. So if it makes your life easier and your learning experience a bit easier to use a template or a theme for starting out, then I don't frown upon that. I think it's a good learning experience. Just make sure your client knows.
Anyone else have any questions or anything they'd like to see? Okay, I think no one else has anything.
Okay, perfect. So that's how I typically approach an Elementor site. I think that it's one of the fastest builders to work with, in my opinion. Again, I think a lot of it is the copy paste functionality that stands out comparatively to a lot of other builders to me, that they don't have. It makes my life a lot easier. I also think, being able to kind of pop in a button that's similar to what you want and then tweaking it, that makes it really easy too.
Okay, Crystal, did you have anything else, or?
I think that's kind of all I had planned for you guys. So
Okay.
I'm obviously happy to dive in and show you anything. One thing I could do is just the difference in how sites can look with Elementor. That might be really helpful for everyone to see. So obviously this one is one that I'm working on right now, and it is for a therapist, and she liked things that were airy and earthy and kind of good outdoors pictures. So what we did here is kept everything really light and airy. So you can see here how this text overlaps. That might be something that I might look at and say, I would like for the section to look like that, but I can't remember how to make that happen in this specific builder. So that's a good place to pop in one of those little pre-made blocks and then tweak it for what you want it to look like. So that's what we did for her homepage. And then obviously she has other pages on the site that talk about what she does. And then I just thought I would show a few others that I've done recently in Elementor. So this one here is for a co-working space. She had some other sites that she found that had this script and sans serif font combo. So we kind of emulated that a bit.
We're not seeing anything.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
We're still on the therapist site.
Let's see here. Oh, I see. Okay, now can you see it?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, perfect. So this is a co-working site. Yeah, she liked this combination of script and regular font together. So that was something she specifically requested. We also have a background video in this one of the co-working space kind of in action, which is kind of fun. Then we have a testimonial slider. Obviously you can scroll through, but it will also rotate on its own. Good list, lots of pictures. There's an instance where we used icons instead of pictures for a 3-step. You'll see that on a lot of my sites. Email sign-up forms, those kind of things. Let me stop this share and I'll show you another one. So this one here, she is a voice coach. She typically worked with actors and now she's working with executives on their presence. As in, anyone should be able to give a TED Talk at any time. How do you do that? She's fantastic, but what she was kind of going for was this like rich kind of Santa Fe colors. We also did a branded photo shoot for her, so you can see a lot of pictures throughout that coordinate, which is, again, something that I think really enhances the design whenever they have great pictures. Lots of icons pulled in there. Here's a client slider of some of the people that she's worked with. You can kind of see her in action there. Again, some testimonials. And then an email sign up. So you can see those look pretty different from each other. And the last one that I'll show you, I thought about this morning, this one would be kind of fun to show, is a pet sitting service out of Atlanta. And they actually hired a pet photographer to photograph some of the pets and their people that they look after, which was very fun. So here, you know, obviously it looks a little bit different. We have call to action button in the menu. We have this script pulled in that matches her font for her logo, which was really important for her to see on there. So that is actually a custom font that I uploaded. There are several different button styles you can see here, but all the cute pets and their people. Their services, testimonials. How to stay in touch. One of the pages I really liked on their site was the services, because you get a lot more of the animals. So not just dogs, but they look after all kinds of pets. How to get started, and then their pricing. So that was important for her to have the pricing right there so people could see it and understand it, and all the different things that they offer. So that one has a lot of.
Go ahead. Are there any more plugins that integrate with Elementor that you can recommend?
Yeah, Essential Add-ons is my favorite. I'll pull up their website. It's usually my go-to. And one of the main reasons I ended up ever purchasing it is for Instagram feeds. I have several clients that want an Instagram feed on their site, and that's not something that's built into Elementor's core. So I started using Essential Add-ons, and they have, let's see if I can get down to their features list. It's not the end of the world, you know, that's for unlimited sites, I think, but on one website you're looking at 39. There are some elements here that are repeated. The other thing that I use this for is Gravity Forms styling, because like I mentioned, I like to use Gravity Forms for my forms. It's what I'm used to. And they have a styler where you can pick literally any element in your Gravity Forms and style the font, the size, the input area, the color, anything about it, which makes my life really easy.
Have you had any problems with Elementor and some of the Google page speed changes coming up, cumulative layout shift, or largest contentful paint?
I have not, although I will say that's not my area of expertise. I partner with someone who runs speed tests on all of my sites and recommends changes. And so far we haven't ran into major issues. A few little tweaks here and there, which he takes care of for me, but it's not been anything notable.
All right. Anyone else have any other questions?